I have wide receiver 2 as my number 2 need. Do you have that as your number 1? It's your 2 as well?
That's also my number 2. Yep.
Okay, I think, man, and that means we both have edge number 1. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
But the Chiefs, they desperate. I think Patrick Mahomes' day would have been better. I know that Byron Pringle was getting open. I know McCall Hardman was getting open. If they have a guy that's just reliable, a security blanket, it doesn't have to be a big time, big shot, big money wide receiver. Draft a guy that can get open and run good routes. Sign a guy that can run good routes. They don't have to have blazing speed. They don't have to have the best hands. Just get open and be reliable. I guess having good hands kind of lies with that, but be a reliable third option. Some games it was the McCall Hardman game. Some games it was the Byron Pringle game. A couple games Demarcus Robinson made big plays. And that's part of having good role players. But get a guy who can line up on the outside and then a little bit in the slot 17 times a year, stay healthy, get open, win on his own, take some pressure off of Tyreek Hill, take some pressure off of Travis Kelce. Those guys unnecessarily got a lot of wear and tear put on their bodies, I think, this past year. Kelce specifically, a third reliable option, meaning a wide receiver 2, I think can help the Chiefs a great deal. And for those reasons, that's my number 2 need for the Chiefs as they head into the offseason, locking up a wide receiver 2 via free agency or in the draft.
Yeah, that's why I'd put him at number 2 as well. Like you said, Pringle, Hardman, Robinson, they all had a little bit of shine there, but not enough to take over as the number 2 guy. Like, you're not going to re-sign Robinson because he did so well this year. You're not going to re-sign Pringle because he did so well this year. That you could re-sign Pringle as a guy that can come back for cheap, that knows the system, kind of like they did with Robinson the last couple of years. But I wouldn't expect him to be the number 2 guy again. I think that if they do re-sign Pringle, it's going to be a depth signing. And I do think that they're going to either bring in somebody like Juju Smith-Schuster, Odell Beckham Jr., Allen Robinson would be my top guy, but I know that he's probably going to cost a lot, so I wouldn't expect that. But somebody like one of those 3 guys would be absolutely fantastic in this offense with Patrick Mahomes as that guy that you said could give some relief to Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and then you can still have McCall Hardman doing the sweeps, doing everything else that he does, even can be the deep threat at times. So yeah. And then, I mean, I wouldn't even be opposed to drafting somebody if you see somebody that's sitting there. Maybe a guy that got hurt that maybe falls a little bit to the second round or something like that. I know I've seen some people doing mock drafts already, and I see this Alabama wide receiver falling to the Chiefs at the end of the second round. I'm like, I don't think that's going to happen. But if it does, I would be fine with that totally.
Yeah, it's a good draft to need what the Chiefs need. And number 1, man, we both think the edge position is what the heck the Chiefs need. And it's not like Tyrann Mathieu. It's not like Charvarius Ward. We all know Frank Clark is going to be cut. Like, it's just, I hate being that guy, and I never want to be that guy. But like, the writing's on the wall. He is making too much money relative to his production. There's a relatively easy way out. He's not going to take a restructure, nor should he. I mean, if I was making that much money and the team approached me and said, "Hey, dude, we need you to take a pay cut," I wouldn't flip him the bird because I'm not that rude, but I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. Especially, I know people get mad and say they make so much money. Taxes are you know what, regardless of how much money you're making. Like, they don't have reasons to lose out on $10+ million. He just doesn't. So he's going to be gone. Alex Okafor is going to be gone. Melvin Ingram is slated to be gone. He might return. The Chiefs can't go into the season with like Joshua Kando and Mike Dana as their top 2 defensive ends. They just can't. They need to draft one early, maybe 2. They need to sign/trade for one. If there's one thing that Brett Veach talked about that really got hammered home in that press conference last Tuesday, it was the defensive line. He knows. Chris Jones is going to be there. Tershawn Morton's going to be there. Mike Dana is going to be there. Joshua Kando is going to be there. But like, in terms of starting quality talent, the edge position is going to be completely revamped, I think, heading into next season.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you can kind of hear the writing on the wall with the press conferences as well, like at Frank Clark's end of the year press conference. And then also, even when he was at the Pro Bowl, like he did a live shot during the game from, I don't know if it's the NFL Twitter or the Chiefs Twitter, but he was like, "Hey, y'all, repping Chiefs Kingdom. Hopefully, I'll see y'all next season." Like he's like saying, "Hopefully, I'll see you next season." Like I don't know what's coming, but yeah, hopefully, I see you guys. So it's like, okay, even Frank kind of feels it. So I know there's talks behind the scenes. I know his agent's probably talking to him like, all right, we better get ready to talk to some new teams next year, because I don't think that if the Chiefs cut him that he'll be coming back on a smaller deal with the Chiefs at that point. So he'll get paid somewhere else a lower amount, but I don't think he'd come back to the Chiefs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Mark, any underlying, I mean, we addressed a lot of stuff. I think you talked about linebacker, special teams wise, they're set. That leaves offensive line and tight end, really. And tight end, they're going to be chock full of guys, especially with Jody Fortson coming back. Him, Noah Gray, Kelsey will be a good three-headed monster. That was a very strong term. A good three-headed depth chart, we could
There you
say.
go.
Along the offensive line, I could see him getting a Mike Remmers or an Andrew Wiley, like, or physically, literally those guys again. I think having depth will be important for them. They're going to bring in some guys who can spot start. You know, Austin Blythe, I believe he was a 1-year deal. Kyle Long was a 1-year deal. Like, they're going to lose some guys. Luckily for them, their top four are going to be back in the same spot next year, whether Orlando Brown gets franchise tagged or signed to a long-term deal. Lucas Niang projected to be back for next season, but I mean, he didn't play great to where he's slotted in as the right tackle. I think it's very light pencil for him right now. But I guess they could always make moves on the offensive line. They could always bring in a linebacker. They could always bring in a Blake Bell type guy again, or Blake Bell himself. Other than that, man, I don't think there's a ton else. The Chiefs have like a billion roster spots to fill, but in terms of need, I think there's a pretty clear hierarchy of what they have to attack this offseason.